Today I'm joined by Dr. Yatomi Clarke, who's the CEO of Prescient Therapeutics. Stephen, welcome to the Morgans Network.
Thank you very
We've
much.
spoken before on a podcast, but it'd be really good just to update the network on the Prescient story and just a little bit about the programs that you're working on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Where would you like me to start?
Well, the broad outline of the technology, where it came from, and then we'll get into each of the programs.
Sure. So we're a clinical stage oncology company, and we're developing two different cancer drugs for very specific types of mutations that drive cancer. And typically these are mutations that not only drive the development of cancer, but also contribute towards resistance for current treatments. So I guess where people are failing therapies, as they invariably do, 9 out of 10 times, we're looking to provide some targeted therapies to switch those drivers of cancer off. And we currently have two such drugs that we're testing in 3 clinical trials, soon to be 4, and they're from prestigious US institutions, Yale University and the Moffitt Cancer Center.
Okay, well, let's start with the first program. I think you're doing something in breast cancer. So what's happening there?
Yeah, that's right. So people might think breast cancer is a crowded space, but that's only true for a very small subset of breast cancers. And the way to think about breast cancer, it's not one disease, but it's a series of diseases that just happen to be localised in the same tissue. And so we're focusing on triple negative and ER positive breast cancer that has spread beyond the breast tissue itself. It's called locally advanced breast cancer and metastatic breast cancer. And that was our phase 1B study that we announced the results of, is to improve that standard of care, which is just chemo and has been for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we saw really encouraging results from that. And ultimately, biotech companies should be judged on the quality of their data and how much of an improvement above the current standard of care you can get. And what you'd normally expect in this disease is about 25% of women to respond, and we had 50% of women respond.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, and even more of a hint towards the population we're looking at in this current phase 2 study, which is not metastatic and locally advanced, but just locally advanced breast cancer. 100% of patients responded. So if we get anything in the remotest ballpark close to that by the end of the phase 2 study, things are going to get seriously exciting for us, I think.
Okay, the next program, ovarian cancer, I think.
Yeah, again, the same thing, the same type of theme you'll see running through all our programs is that once women are resistant to current therapies, which is platinum-based chemotherapies, there's precious little for them. And that resistance is driven by one of these switches, in this case AKT, and we're looking to switch that off. So women they've failed this frontline therapy and they're now receiving our drug to resensitise them to these therapies, and that's currently in a phase 1B study. And similarly, again, in a horrible blood disease called acute myeloid leukemia. I just saw an announcement today that as I landed, actually, that golfer Jared Lyle has just passed away from leukemia. Once again, once you're refractory you're resistant to these therapies, nothing works and you die right quick. So we're looking to switch off and give patients a better chance of getting a response and a durable response at that. And that's right at the tail end of that phase 1B as well. So things are exciting for us. We've got juggling a number of balls at the moment.
And you mentioned a 4th trial coming.
Yeah, that's right. We're very, very excited about PTX 100, which is our second program. And that is an inhibitor of the RAS pathway, which is a very well-known pathway that drives a lot of cancers and has been a very elusive target for a great many companies, but remains very important. And one of the subsets of that pathway is a switch called Rho, and we've got the only drug in the world that switches off this switch called Rho, and that's recently been discovered to be a very important driver of disease in its own right, and that's already been in a phase 1 study, and we're looking to re-enter the clinic with that very shortly.
Okay, and in terms of the business model, a lot of pharmaceutical drug development companies look to license out their programs. Is that the path you think you'll go down?
I think that makes sense with PTX 200, where we have, we've got a great clinical development team and fantastic scientists on on board, where we can take our programs, demonstrate efficacy, and look to license that off, even if it's territory by territory. That makes sense for us, rather than running these huge phase 3 studies, should I say, for registration, which take a very long time and are very expensive. For PTX 100, whilst that might be the case, what we've got there is the optionality to run what they're called basket studies, where you can run shorter trials but enriched for the mutation that you're looking to address. And there are precedents for this that we've seen in the US a number of times, where you can run, instead of phase 1, 2, 3, you do a truncated study enriched for that mutation, and you can take the drug to market yourself. Will we? It's nice to have the optionality to do that, because that's certainly within the capabilities of a smaller biotech company, and that can really transform a company.
Absolutely. When you look at the market cap of PTX and compare it with some of the other companies out there, both domestically but more specifically internationally, what are your comments? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's fair to say that any one of our programs more than underpins our current price, and probably the way to think about it is, we're more than underpinned by any one of our trials. We've been de-risked by the fact that, people have been waiting for that efficacy signal to see, are your drugs working? It's very clear that it's starting to point us in the right direction and is telling us some encouraging signs. If it was early and only slightly encouraging, I guess people might sit on the fence, but it's looking quite encouraging, albeit early. I think that more than underpins where we're at now, and could go multiples of that as soon as that starts to get recognised, let alone any of our other programs. So I think the safety net is relatively ratchet up, not too far below where we're at now, I would have thought.
Okay, well, that's probably a good place to end the conversation. There's obviously a lot happening with PTX, so all the best for the upcoming quarters, 6 months, 12 months, and we'll keep a very close eye and look forward to talking to you in the future. Been joined by Dr. Stephen Yatomi Clarke, who's the CEO from Prescient Therapeutics.